The U.S. government has surpassed the national debt ceiling and fears of a recession continue to grow. We have not seen the labor market largely affected, but one sector facing layoffs is tech. Google has become the latest major tech company to announce layoffs after recent cuts by Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, the parent company of Facebook. Michael George shares the latest.
Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is cutting 12,000 jobs, about 6% of its workforce. In an email, the company's CEO wrote, "Over the past 2 years, we've seen periods of dramatic growth. To match and fuel that growth, we hired for a different economic reality than the one we face today." The belt-tightening at Google follows other recent tech sector job cuts. Microsoft announced earlier this week it's laying off 10,000 workers, or nearly 5% of its workforce. Amazon has said it's cutting 18,000 jobs, and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, announced it's laying off 11,000 positions.
I think that many companies are right-sizing their staff.
Many tech companies went on a pandemic hiring spree because of increased demand for their products as millions of people worked remotely. By late last year, Google's parent company, Alphabet, said it had nearly 187,000 employees on the books.
It is pretty easy for most companies to cut 10 to 15% of their employee base right now.
Economists say what's happening in tech is so far an exception in the labor market.
The overall labor market has been remarkably resilient. The latest data we have through December suggested it is holding up despite higher interest rates.
For newly out-of-work software engineers, a job search beyond the big-name companies may be the way to go.
I've been able to get interviews from more smaller startups.
And even with the new downsizing, many of the big tech companies are still bigger than they were before the pandemic.
Well, before the most recent string of tech sector layoffs, there were reports of Twitter drastically downsizing in November. It came after the company was sold to Elon Musk. Now, some laid-off employees have sued, arguing Twitter violated their right to receive advance notice before a mass layoff. Casey Decker breaks down the laws that the workers say Twitter broke.
So are companies legally required to give advance notice before mass layoffs? Let's verify. Our sources are the WARN Act and the U.S. Department of Labor. A federal law, the WARN Act, says, quote, an employer shall not order a plant closing or mass layoff until the end of a 60-day period after the employer serves written notice of such an order. So yes, in some situations, notice is required. But what situations are those specifically? Well, first, this law only applies to companies with at least 100 full-time employees. Second, it also only applies to single work sites, not the company as a whole. That's because the law was mostly created to prevent companies from suddenly pulling out of a city and tanking the local economy. Third, the number of people laid off matters. If it's fewer than 50, the law doesn't apply. If it's between 50 and 500, the law only applies if the number constitutes a third of all workers at that location. And if it's 500 or more, the law always applies. There are also some exceptions, though, like if a natural disaster destroys a workplace. So we can verify, yes, companies are legally required to give 60 days notice before mass layoffs, if the company size and the number of people being laid off is large enough. But whether Twitter specifically broke this law will have to be decided in court, where there are also similar state laws at play. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.